Today we're going to talk about why your ex jumped into another relationship so quickly after their breakup with you. And really, I want to highlight two areas that often don't get talked about enough when it comes to this topic. Number one is sort of the swept under the rug facts about rebound relationships. And number two is how avoidant research will help us understand the speed of rebounds. So buckle up because we're going to be diving into things that are rarely talked about in the breakup industry. Let's begin. So let's first start by talking about the facts that the breakup industry just sweeps under the rug about rebounds. So generally speaking, when you're looking at a situation where your ex quickly jumps into another relationship after their breakup with you, you're looking at a rebound relationship. Of course, when you're looking at rebounds, there are certain held beliefs that people have about them. Like they're destined to fail or they are an unhealthy way of handling a breakup. But what if I were to tell you that most of what you believe about rebounds might be wrong? In fact, many of the stereotypes you have about them are simply false when looking at the data. Take the unhealthy aspect. So most people believe that rebounds don't give you time to process your emotions and properly grieve. And I suppose sort of the expectation that we all have is that you're supposed to go through the 5 stages of grief after a breakup before moving on to someone else. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But what usually happens is that right around when we get to anger or depression, you'll notice your ex goes on the rebound. They'll push their pain away, but instead of processing it, they'll use another person to distract themselves from it. That's the stereotype. That's the argument for why people say that rebounds are bad. That's the whole argument of the breakup industry, but they might be wrong. In fact, according to an article written in 2014 by Psychology Today, new research suggests that rebound relationships are surprisingly healthy. Recent evidence suggests, in fact, that people who dive into rebound relationships get over their ex-partner more quickly and feel more confident in their dateability. So it was actually me stumbling across this article that kind of convinced me that our concept of the being there method was the correct way to go in a post-breakup period, assuming that you want your ex back if they are in a new relationship. But we're kind of dancing around the big elephant in the room here. We still haven't really explained why exes move on so quickly. And to be honest with you, I struggled with this question for years before finding an answer that I felt made a lot of sense. And that answer is the connection between avoidance and the speed of rebounds. So often when I'm writing, talking, recording about avoidance, you'll see me cite the following poll. This poll I did in June 9th of 2021, where I basically asked all the people of our private Facebook support group, hey, what core attachment style would you classify your ex as? And over 70% of our clients admitted that they believe their exes are avoidant. And essentially, what it's proving is that most of the exes that we have studied have the avoidant attachment style. And you want to know what I'm learning? That you can learn a lot about why exes act the way they act by simply understanding their psychology. Them jumping into another relationship is really no different. Now let's take the avoidant death cycle as a perfect example. This is essentially a graphic I put together to kind of help explain the life cycle of a relationship for an avoidant. I've always thought of this cycle as a wheel, with each revolution claiming another relationship in its path. So they kind of cycle through the 8 stages, and then the revolution of the wheel comes around and they do it again. Now, for our purposes, the important part of the graphic is actually stage 6, which is the I'm so happy that I left. This essentially highlights that post-breakup period and how the avoidant handles it. And according to one of my favorite resources, Free to Attach, avoidants will often go through a separation elation period. After a relationship ends, people with an avoidant attachment style tend not to show much anxiety or distress, often feeling an initial sense of relief at the relinquishing of obligations and the sense that they're regaining their self-identity and not tending to initially miss their partner. This is called separation elation, as the pressure to connect is gone, which interestingly is really followed pretty closely by a period of repression. So avoidants are experts at repressing emotions. They do not feel much initially, typically appear to recover quickly after relationships and can move on fast, more comfortable seeking a new pursuit situation. They envision that a new person could be the solution to their woes. So this seems to line up pretty well with the rebound stereotype I just took aim at earlier. So am I wrong, or is there something that we're missing here? Well, What's interesting is that while it is true that avoidants use rebounds to repress their emotions, this is a coping mechanism that's been present with them since childhood. They don't know any other way of dealing with it. And as such, they jump from relationship to relationship and heal from breakups that way. And it's actually effective for them. In fact, one of the things we're finding is that more experience that your ex has of handling breakups in this way, the more effective it is for them to move on. But I'm getting kind of off topic. What we really need to talk about here is how avoidants truly view jumping from relationship to relationship. And generally speaking, new relationships are kind of romanticized by avoidants. Remember, a contradiction lies at the heart of every avoidant. There's a need to be loved, but a protective mechanism that prevents them from letting anyone get close enough to give them that love. Naturally, they prefer relationships where there are no strings attached or no large threat to their independence. Rebounds fit this criteria because ultimately in their head, they have no intention of falling for the other person. Rather, it's more about falling for the chase, romanticizing the honeymoon period. But this is all happening on a subconscious level without their forefront knowledge. They start out every new relationship optimistic that things are going to work out. Remember the start of the death cycle we just talked about above or earlier? I just want someone to love me. That's how the rebound death wheel begins. This is ultimately what everyone thinks before entering into a relationship in general. And avoidants are no different than us at the beginning. They fall for the honeymoon period. Things are looking great until the newness wears off and their avoidant tendencies begin to come to the forefront. And it always revolves around a threat to their independence. Once that honeymoon period is over, once that rebound makes an attempt to draw them closer, they begin to self-sabotage the relationship. They want their independence back. I guess the point I'm making here is we think that oftentimes avoidants are jumping from rebound relationship to rebound relationship, but that's not what they're really doing. What they're really doing is jumping from honeymoon period to honeymoon period. And I suppose the big thing I'd like you to take from this discussion is that avoidants don't really view rebounds as viable on purpose. Remember, their whole MO is that they want to keep their independence by any means necessary. So the reason they jump so quickly from one relationship to the next is they're sucking up the honeymoon period out of each. It's a little like drinking a milkshake. They get into a relationship with you, drink the honeymoon milkshake, but the second the shake goes dry is when their avoidant tendencies cause them to want to move on to someone else, to drink another milkshake, honeymoon period to honeymoon period.